for Trump rather than Hillary. And my only point is, where is the reflection here? Where's the concern about actual issues, the unemployment numbers?
Sure.
Will focusing on Carter Page's Russia ties bring a single job to a single American? I mean, really?
First off, Rob Quist in Montana, what is he campaigning on right now? Is he campaigning on Russia? Is he talking about the special counselor? No. You know what he's talking about? He's talking about health care. He's talking about fixing Obamacare.
Exactly.
And he's talking about campaigning
And he's doing pretty well. You're making my point for me. And he's doing pretty well.
Look, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can absolutely walk and chew gum at the same time. We are focusing to make sure that our republic is secure because of the extraordinary intervention by a hostile foreign power.
You're selling crap to your voters, and you know that. You're telling them that all their problems can be explained by Vladimir Putin's intervention into American politics.
That's 100% not
and it's
true.
insane, and it's sad, and they believe you because they trust you, but you're lying to them.
We are literally going out there and campaigning every day on health care. That's what our candidates are going out there and talking to people about. That's what members of Congress are spending their time focusing on. I mean, if you turn on the TV
Really, because I live here, I host a cable show in this city, and I can promise you that every person I talk to on the left is totally absorbed in the Russia story, and this poll, on which this whole segment is predicated, proves that it's true.
Look, Russia is an extraordinarily important issue because there is a potential active obstruction of justice piece that's going on right now, and it's very, very important. However, we are talking in a very focused way on healthcare, which is all the evidence you need is if you go into Montana, if you go into Georgia, and the Georgia.
Well, actually, I'm agreeing with you that when Democrats address middle-class economics, they have a shot. And by the way, the country deserves someone to focus on that.
Sure.
Bernie Sanders almost got your nomination, and he did it not by talking about Russia or these weird social issues that really serve nobody except your stupid little interest groups. He talked about bread and butter things like student loans, which are a real thing. And you guys have abandoned that completely.
I mean, if you go onto the floor of the House of Representatives, what are they talking about? They're talking about health care. They're talking about jobs. The first thing that the Senate Democrats did, what do? They sent an infrastructure jobs bill to the White House. Where has that been? That has been sitting there languishing.
So really, they're going to impeach Trump because he's not responding to the opioid crisis or unemployment or the rise in health care costs? No, they're trying to impeach him because they think that he's Vladimir Putin's marionette, and it's insane.
The Democratic leadership is not talking about impeachment. What they are talking about is this awful health care bill that is going to mean that 23 million people have fewer people have health care. Can I suggest one thing?
Maybe it would be good for the Democratic Party to lead, rather than letting its interest groups set the agenda and its spun-up net roots who watch the cable shows demand action on this or that, but to articulate what the message is. The middle class needs representation, and they're ignoring it.
Again, if you want to know what we are talking about on a day-to-day basis, go see our candidates who are talking about health care, who are talking about job creation.
So you got one guy in Montana, but
and Georgia and other candidates that are going around.
Zach, it's great to see you.
You too.
Thanks. President Trump is trying to cope with a special prosecutor and a White House staff that has sprung 1 million leaks. Maybe that's too small a number. More than 1 million. Is it time to bring back one of his political allies from the campaign? Corey Lewandowski joins us in a minute. He's former Trump campaign manager. Is he going back to the White House? Published reports say yes. We'll ask. Plus, New York is heaping honors on a terrorist whose terror group murdered 5 New Yorkers. This is actually happening right now. We'll ask a city council member why he's supporting this guy and why New York is suddenly in favor of terror. An amazing story. Stay tuned. President Trump may be going back to his political roots in January 2015 when his campaign was still such a joke to pretty much everybody. Corey Lewandowski agreed to be his campaign manager. He didn't get Trump to the finish line. He got him to the nomination, though. Now rumors are swirling that Trump wants to bring Lewandowski back to the White House as part of a special crisis management team. Are the rumors true? Corey Lewandowski joins us tonight to confirm or deny. Corey, you going back to the White House?
Tucker, the only time I go to the White House is as a guest. You know that, just as a visitor. I like to bring my family sometimes. That's about it.
So you wouldn't consider going back to work as a crisis manager as this investigation proceeds?
Well, let me be very clear, and I think everyone knows this. My loyalty is to the president and to make sure that his agenda, which he ran on, which is jobs, homeland security, building a wall, making sure people are back to work, cutting taxes for the American working class is moving forward. And if that means I can help the president by doing that, of course, it would be a privilege. But let me be clear. I've got a great life. I love doing what I'm doing. If I can help the president from the outside, I can be very, very helpful from the outside, maybe much more so than even on the inside.
If you went inside, what would you do? What does crisis management mean in an investigation like this?
Honestly, I don't know. And to be clear, I haven't had any conversations about this. So what's amazing is, there's one media outlet which we like to qualify as fake news. It's called Politico. They write a story, and all of a sudden everybody picks up on it and says, wow, it's factual. And what's amazing to me was I was on an airplane coming back from Miami on Monday. The plane lands, the story breaks, and all of a sudden I get a bunch of phone calls that says, hey, heard you have a job at the White House, which nobody told me or anybody else I had been associated with. So, don't believe everything you read in the fake news.
Oh, I would never defend Politico. It's a ridiculous little website. But a lot of people in the White House talk to Politico, I've noticed. That is real. They're getting a lot of calls from staff, both career people and appointees, from within the building. And so that's kind of the larger question. Why all these leaks? I've never seen this many leaks in any administration since I've been here.
Well, Tucker, it's very clear to me, and what we've seen is we saw a report, and I don't know if it's actually accurate or not, but we saw that there are 3 staffers who have been identified by a news outlet that have leaked classified information. If that happened, those people should be held to the highest standards of the law accountable, which is a felony. If there are additional leaks that are taking place, I would recommend that the staff of the White House dig in as hard as they can to find out who those leaks are and immediately and permanently remove those people, not just from the White House, but from any government agency that they are working for, and move them out as quickly as possible. There is a deep state that wants to see the president not accomplish his agenda. They did not support him when he ran. They do not support him as the president, and they should not be working in this administration.
And they're working day and night to undermine the president. So 2.5 hours ago, the New York Times put a story on its website saying that intelligence services picked up conversations between Russian intelligence officials talking about how to suborn, how to influence the Trump campaign. Now, there's no suggestion in the piece that the Trump campaign cooperated with this or became agents of Russia, but this is clearly an attempt by career intel officers to hurt the White House. That's a big deal. That doesn't happen a lot in normal administration. So what is being done to stop this? This will paralyze the administration if it goes on.
Well, that's right. And look, I don't think, the intelligence community, they have traditionally been nonpartisan. But let me be clear. We see time and time and time again now that the president is having private conversations that very few people have access to, that in many cases are classified. The Drudge Report had a story today that classified information was leaked again by a president's conversation with another world leader. That is being done from the intelligence community solely to discredit this president. They don't want to see him be successful. They are doing so not just at the detriment of the president, but at the detriment of the entire country. These people need to be held accountable. They need to be found out who they are. They need to be removed immediately. And if they have committed a crime, they need to be prosecuted for that crime.
So there's going to be, or there already is, in fact, a criminal investigation underway, and we're not exactly sure who the targets are, but presumably everyone who works over there and anyone in the orbit. What's going to happen if the people conducting that investigation start leaking what they find during the course of it?
Well, again, you completely erode the public trust. And, no matter what takes place, there are things that should be brought out to the public in the interest of full disclosure, and there are things that should be done behind the scenes to make sure that they aren't leaked. And what we've seen in this administration, unlike in the Obama administration, the Bush administration before him, is the leaks from within the organization. I think what has to be done is the president has about 4,000 presidential appointments. I think the staff needs to work as due diligence as quickly as possible to make sure his appointees are being put in place. We have seen time and time again the holdovers. We saw at the Department of Education just yesterday a holdover quit as opposed to testifying before the committee. We saw that Sally Yates refused to implement a direct order of the president and was removed from her job. These people who served under the Obama administration will do anything they can to destroy this president. They need to be removed, and they need to be brought in. New people need to be brought in who are loyal to the president and, moreover, loyal to the country.
Yeah, I mean, like yesterday, and we don't have time to ask why that hasn't been done, but it is the question that hangs in the air. Corey Lewandowski, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Oscar Lopez Rivera was a leader in a terror group that committed hundreds of bombings and killed 5 in New York. He went to prison for a long time now. He's out. Obama got him out. Now New York City is honoring him as a great man. Up next, we'll talk to a city councilman who compares him to Nelson Mandela. We'll find out why. Well, New York's annual Puerto Rican Day Parade is coming up in 2 weeks, and this one will make national news. Organizers have announced they're going to honor a man called Oscar Lopez Rivera during the parade. Who's he? Well, just a terrorist, literally. Lopez Rivera was a leader with the FALN, a Puerto Rican paramilitary group. that was committing all kinds of attacks throughout the United States in the 70s and 80s in an effort to make Puerto Rico communist. They murdered 5 people in New York during a series of bombings. Lopez Rivera would still be in prison for as many crimes, but President Obama commuted his sentence just before leaving office with very little fanfare since the press didn't really bother to cover it, and he went free. Jermaine Williams is on the City Council of New York City, and he signed a letter praising Lopez Rivera, declaring solidarity with him. I'm not even sure what to say about this. I mean, you represent New York City, a city you'd think would be sensitive to terror, and yet you're endorsing an admitted terrorist. There's no debate about what the guy did. He admitted it. So why would you do that?
So one, I'm going to be marching the Puerto Rican Day Parade to celebrate the heritage and the culture there. Two, Mr. Lopez has said that he hasn't committed any violent crimes and hasn't been associated with violent crimes. And lastly, a lot of these things depends on the vantage point that we're looking at. And so Nelson Mandela was a terrorist until 2008, 5 years before his death by the United States government. And so a lot of times people are conflating and they use violence, as they say, as a separation. But what they're trying to say
I don't even know. You didn't even do your research. I mean, what do you mean you didn't admit it? He did admit it. He was convicted. He was convicted. Hold, slow down.
Sure.
I actually read contemporaneous news reports today.
Sure.
In 1981, he went on trial. He was convicted of armed robbery and bomb making and a bunch of other things. He admitted that he did it. Then President Clinton tried to offer him clemency if only he would renounce violence, and he wouldn't. So there's no debate that the guy committed acts of violence. He admitted to armed robbery.
Because they didn't recognize the United States, they actually didn't put up a defense. And so everyone, the United States just went ahead and did their own case. But he has renounced violence.
That's not true. He was tried in our justice system and admitted that he committed armed robbery and made bombs.
That aside, we should get to the real point. And so many people conflate saying, I don't believe in the tools of the cause, when they really just don't believe in the cause to begin with. So I submit to you, what strategy should be used to fight for one's freedom, justice, and
well,
equity?
how about the strategy they use in Puerto Rico, which is having referenda where the Puerto Ricans get to vote on whether they want to be an independent country or a state or a territory, which they regularly do. They do that all the time. You obviously don't follow this in any detail. You're glomming on to the guy because he's a fashionable communist, but he's also a terrorist.
Again, Nelson Mandela was viewed as a terrorist till 2008.
But this is, are you really comparing him to Nelson Mandela?
Martin Luther King was the most dangerous man in America by the FBI. He was shot and killed violently. What we're saying, and we do this very often.
Did Martin Luther King commit armed robbery?
What we're saying
you could say that. No, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is we conflate a lot of issues. We oftentimes don't believe in the cause.
You're conflating issues. I'm not even attacking the cause.
Sure.
I'm merely saying armed robbery and making bombs are not legitimate forms of political expression.
Well,
and you are saying they are.
The United States has supported people who have done violent acts in the course of getting their freedom across the world.
Okay,
what we tend to do is...
Okay, but I'm not for that. Are you for that? Are you
I'm not. But what I'm saying is, we should be consistent. So when the St. Patrick's Day Parade celebrated the IRA by having them in their parade, the NYPD did not participate, possibly because there was a lot of Irish in the NYPD.
Okay, well, I guess I'm against that too, but like, I don't understand. What do you... I mean, look, you could say the same thing about Timothy McVeigh. He thought he was committing an act of war against the United States. How would you have felt if President Bush had commuted his sentence before his execution and he was honored in a parade?
Yeah, but so now you're comparing different things. We have a colony that has no representation and can't vote for president, can't vote in Congress, and what they're saying is they either want statehood or they want independence.
They get to vote. Now, again, I'm trying to be patient, but you don't know anything about this. They get to vote on whether they want... Okay, then are you aware that they get to vote, popular vote, on whether they want to be their own country? And they don't. I think they should, by the way. They don't because they get so much in aid from the United States.
No, but there are some people who actually do and have been fighting it for some time. The question is, what do we do when people are fighting for their freedom and justice. And so often we try to pretend.
So it's legitimate to commit
No,
armed
what I'm
robbery.
saying is I don't condone that. I support nonviolent. But what I'm saying is even when we do nonviolent resistance, whether it's sitting down for the Pledge of Allegiance, whether it's simply people saying Black Lives Matter, people get excoriated with the same language.
You
so
are a demagogue who's endorsing violent behavior. You're an elected official who is making excuses for violent behavior, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
People oftentimes pretend they prefer one strategy over another when they just don't prefer any strategy at all.
Well, I don't prefer armed robbery. It's pretty simple. And you're in a position of responsibility.
Absolutely.
People voted for you. They look to you. They take their cues from you. And you should say unequivocally,
violent behavior. But this country
you're
is
supporting a